Hello and welcome to the next in the series of the Common Awards Best Practice videos. Really delighted to have Andrew Hayes from Queen's in Birmingham joining us today. Andrew, I wonder if you could just say a little bit about your role at Queen's and who you are and what you do there.
Sure. So I've been at Queen's quite a while. I was a tutor in the Ministerial Formation originally, and now I'm the director of the Centre of Discipleship and Theology at Queen's, which is where most of our independent students sit within our structure. And that means various things, but mainly it means I have oversight of various different types of programmes for lay people and independent students, including distance learners and readers and people on other pathways, including the daytime pathways.
Thanks, Andrew. I wonder if you could just begin by introducing us to the mentoring scheme that you're involved with.
Sure. So our writing mentor scheme has been going for 4 years now, and it was created out of a desire and a need to create other means for helping people to improve their study skills and their writing and increasing accessibility beyond us delivering study skill sessions, which we've changed how we do all that stuff now anyway. But at the time, it was a sense of trying to get beyond classroom content or just resources to hand to people to create some one-to-one specialized work. And so our participation and access group, which I chair, was tasked with finding alternative provisions, finding ways we could upskill and equip people in other ways. So I went around digging and I discovered that one of our partner institutions, which is Newman University, so a Catholic university in Birmingham, had a writing mentor scheme. So I, through our context there, I explored what that is and how it works. And out of that, we developed our own version of that scheme, which works slightly differently to their scheme.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. How did the scheme initially get started? You've talked a little bit about that, but was there something that prompted you to particularly to think about starting the scheme?
Nothing specific other than we're aware of a general lack of confidence in some of our students and various levels of attainment, and certainly requests from students consistently for more study skills in a kind of undifferentiated way, just more study skills, please. And trying to break that down into, okay, what other kind of things could we do and what other things would be useful? And also what other things would we have the resource to do, which won't create more burden on the staff team directly.
That's great. Thanks, Andrew. What kinds of students do you see benefiting from the scheme? What kind of students, take it up, and what kinds of students benefit from it?
Really, all students of all levels of attainment. Sometimes people are just returning to study. Sometimes people have studied for a long time, or it's their first experience of higher education, or they've been studying for a long time. We discovered that there's really no differentiation or distinction between different levels of skill and experience. Everyone can improve, and actually, even those who you wouldn't expect necessarily to want to access this service frequently do access this service and find it really valuable. So there's no differentiation between who could benefit from it. Maybe I should say a little bit more about how it works in terms of what this scheme what it actually does and how it's used. So we have 2 writing mentors, and they offer online one-to-one sessions of 45 minutes at a time. Students book those directly via a dedicated email address. So they just contact the person and set up a session. They do 6 sessions a week. So there's quite a lot of space there. There's no limit on how many sessions any individual student can have. And what happens in those sessions is determined by the student and the mentor themselves. But primarily what it's aiming to do is help people grow in confidence and help people improve their writing and their understanding of what the task of the writing is. So quite frequently what will happen is a writing mentor might go through their feedback from a previous essay with them and help them to understand what that's saying and to think about ways that they could implement it. Sometimes they'll look at a sample of work of a draft, maybe 500 words or a page, not usually a whole draft or a whole essay, because of time and because of what they're actually trying to achieve. And they'll help them think through structure or critical analysis, or trying to find ways to be less descriptive in their writing and more critical. all those sorts of things. We're really clear, and the writing mentor is really clear, this is not a proofreading service. This is not a last minute thing. This is a improver service. So people can use it as much as they want, but before they're submitting notes, it's building up to, keep coming back for improvement, keep making appointments, but they're not going to at the last minute help you with something. It's looking forward so that sustained and sustainable and implementable change is happening to give people more confidence over time. That's the aim. And it's also important to say our writing mentors, so when Newman set theirs up, what they do is they use current students. Obviously they're universities, they have a much bigger student body, and they have multiple years of students, whereas the theological college tends to have two main years of cohort. Sometimes it's more, but that's the kind of main student body. So they have their student turnover is not quite as high, and they have a bigger pool to draw on, and also they have more than one subject. We surveyed our students when we were starting up the scheme to ask how they would like it to be structured, and they were very clear that they didn't want current or former students to be the mentors. They wanted some kind of external person. So what we did in the end was actually employ one of the Newman University writing mentors, who was a master's student at the time, who comes from a completely other discipline, and they train any additional writing mentors we need for us, and they run the scheme, manage all the data, do the reports for us, all that kind of stuff. So we've kept it external to ourselves in that regard, because that's what students want, and because that gives confidence to them that it's more somewhat like a chaplaincy, that they're not part of our staff team. They're not reporting back to us on particular students. They do give us a data report, generalized report, so we can see trends and we see where improvements can be made and can monitor the service. But it's really important that they're not part of it, and it's important usually that they're not a theologian, so they can't comment on content even if they wanted to.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it's about the style and the form, the
It's very much about the mechanics of the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. We've talked a little bit about this, but could you just say a bit more about what are the key elements and resources that would be needed to run such a scheme? What would be the key things that would be needed?
So I think it would depend what the student, on the context, what the student body want and will benefit from. In our context, as I said, an external person was really important. What was needed is to develop an understanding for them of how our institution works, because they're not coming from another one. And Queen's is a very complicated institution with loads of students on different paths and tracks, and entering at different times, and of different denominations and all sorts of stuff. So it's quite a complex institution. It's quite hard to explain how it fits together. So when they experience students, they don't quite know who they're talking to and quite how they're talking to. So there was quite a lot of work to help them understand us, and that would be the same, I think, if using an external person for many TEIs, although many aren't quite as complicated as Queen's. So whether it's an internal or external person is a key thing. When appointments would happen, how frequently it's going to happen, how it's going to be paid for is a question. We pay our writing mentor, and that comes from money from an OFS grant, which we get as an OFS registered institution, predicated on the numbers of students we have, and that's for accessibility. So how would you resource that kind of thing if you're going to do it externally?
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew. And do you have any other advice for TEIs that would maybe be, they're hearing you talk about this and interested in perhaps looking into the scheme? Any other advice for those?
I think our biggest learning in terms of implementation of the scheme has been communication, how to actually help students to understand what it is and to see it. There's a Moodle page and we tell people about it, but initially it was really quite hard to get uptake, and it was often the same people using it again and again. Not that we know the individuals directly, but so it reported to us. So helping people to understand that this isn't a remedial service, that this genuinely is for everyone and everyone can benefit for it, has taken quite a lot of time. So thinking really carefully about how it will be communicated, how frequently it will be communicated, how you remind people where they will access it. Because it's quite easy to set something up, but it's quite difficult to find ways to help people to engage with and understand what it is. One of the things we did to address that somewhat was actually start to bring writing mentors to our inductions. so that they could meet with students face to face where possible, and have a bit of relationship and understanding, so people knew a bit more about what it is this thing is. So that's probably the main thing, thinking about how it's going to be communicated, and what kind of uptake you would like to see. Now we have a much greater usage across the foundation,
Oh,
but it's taken time to get there.
oh, okay. That's great. And finally, I guess, why would you say that you think this kind of scheme is so important? I mean, it seems like it's been quite a lot of work to set it up and to develop it, but why do you think it's important and worth the effort?
It's important because quite often students are very concerned about assignments, to the extent that that can get in the way of the learning. So it can be hard for them to be open and accessible to learning, because they're so worried about, and that's true for all levels of attainment and experience. So what this does is help to grow confidence and remove some of that disruption, which is part of the actual writing process, such that other forms of learning and even disruptions may be possible that are more fruitful and beneficial. So to try and take away some of the anxiety by giving people a resource, which is one-to-one, that they can grow a bit of a relationship with, but which is external to the institution,
Yeah.
is what's really, really valuable about this game. That's what we've seen success and the improvement come from, because people have grown in confidence and have been less worried about the mechanics of the task, and are able to be more open to the learning itself.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for sharing that. And yeah, I hope everything goes well and the scheme continues to develop. So thank you very much for your time to share that with us.
Thank you. Thank you.